you, Attorney-General.
Are there any questions? Opposition Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is to the Chief Minister and the Minister for Police. Chief Minister, when you were in opposition, you called for a parliamentary inquiry into police 7 times, including into issues of morale and wellbeing. When the outcomes of the Kelly Review were released, you said that it didn't go far enough. The fallout from the ICAC's Operation Apollo on your watch has left a crisis of confidence and trust within the NT Police Force. Chief Minister, now that you are the Minister for Police, will you show leadership and seize the opportunity to hold the full parliamentary inquiry into police morale and wellbeing that you were so keen on when you were previously in opposition?
Chief Minister.
Oh, thank you so much, Madam Speaker. My gosh. Madam Speaker, I don't even know where to start because the opposition leader is right. I stood in this parliament time and time again begging the former Labor government to stop destroying our police force. We had Northern Territory Police Association survey after survey. I think there were 3 in the end. And they showed debilitatingly low levels of morale. They showed a lack of confidence in the former Labor government. There was historically high numbers. I can't remember them off the top of my head, but they were in the 80s or 90s. I think it was in the 90s, as my colleagues are helping me there. And so over and over again, we were saying, what are you doing about this? You need to back our police. The laws are too weak. Stop coming into the parliament and destroying police powers. Stop demoralising them. We had issue after issue after issue. And you did nothing. You did nothing. You watched our attrition rate rise through the roof. I think we got to 11%. I think it was 11%. Police were leaving in droves. We couldn't recruit as fast as we were leaving them. It was absolutely horrific. Horrific.
Order.
And yet we had the churn in police minister after police minister. This government demoted the police portfolio down the line and ended up with their newest minister, Brent Potter, who had no idea what he was doing. It was a mess. I watched former Deputy Chief Minister Nicole Manison rock up at the NTPA conference every single year, promising this, promising that, and every year she would promise the same thing over and over again. How dare you come in here high and mighty? You are an absolute disgrace. Because the CLP has made sure that the Chief Minister holds the police portfolio because we care about our police. We care about law and order. We will deal with crime and support them, Madam Speaker. You are a disgrace. You held a review which we accepted. Who knows how much you paid for that review? We've now got a process in place, and thank you very much, Opposition Leader. We moved very, very swiftly to deal with, mop up again another Labor mess with our police around this idea around recruitment processes.
Take your seat, Chief Minister. Point of order, Leader of the Opposition.
Standing Order 110. Whilst I know the Chief Minister is very passionate about our police.
What's your point of order?
The question, Madam Speaker, specifically, will the Chief Minister support the full parliamentary inquiry which she called for when she was in opposition?
Chief Minister, you've got the floor.
You are a joke. You are an absolute joke to come in here and say that. You are a joke. We have just in the last couple of weeks gone from an ICAC report to a methodical termination of a police commissioner and an independent inquiry into all recruitment going back to August 2023. So we are supporting our police, giving them certainty, the security they need, the powers they need, and the backing of a government that cares about community safety more than anything.
Member for Fanny Bay, you'll be heard in silence.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is for the Chief Minister. Chief Minister, on Tuesday this week, you tabled the Operation Apollo ICAC report, the first sitting day after you had received it. Since receiving the Operation Apollo report, you've taken decisive, considered action culminating in the termination of the Police Commissioner and launched an independent inquiry into the recent recruitment of senior police officers led by Justice Blow. How does your strong action in the past 3 weeks compare to the lack of action on this issue by the former Labor government, in which the member for Arnhem and the member for Goyja were both senior ministers?
Chief Minister, and you'll be heard in silence too.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and I pick up on the ridiculous interjections from those opposite. And clearly, Member for Fanny Bay, you have been reading the same stories in the paper that I have been reading this morning, scratching your head in disbelief at the hypocrisy of those opposite. And why am I surprised? We've got the opposition leader leading with her chin this afternoon in question time. You know, we have sat here and listened to those opposite criticise us. Oh, they thought we were too slow. Madam Speaker, we will never apologise for taking methodical processes in place to moving and making decisions in the best interest of the Northern Territory, something those opposite have no idea about the meaning of the word, Madam Speaker. And so they are jeering from the sidelines about, oh, well, this was too slow and I would have done this and I would have done that. And yet we find out that actually their government knew about it all along, Madam Speaker, because let's face facts. Let's face facts. Who was a former Attorney General? Anyone put up your hands? Oh, okay, thank you. I'm not getting hands up, Madam Speaker, but I can tell you who it was. It was the opposition leader and it was the member for Guoja. And we now know, of course, that their previous government was told about concerns about hiring practices when they were both very, very senior ministers, 12 months ago, and they did absolutely nothing, Madam Speaker. Absolutely
Silence.
nothing. And,
Chief Minister, please take your seat. Point of order, Opposition Leader.
Standing Order 35, the imputations that the Chief Minister is saying here in this Parliament that I knew something that I did not, I would like her to withdraw that.
No, look, that's not a point of order. 35 is relevance to the subject. You've pointed out the wrong standing order, and it's not disorderly what she said. It's not disorderly.
Thank you,
not a
Madam.
point of
I
order,
find
Chief Minister.
What a hypocrite. I mean, she stood up and said, oh, you're trying to say I knew something that I didn't. Yeah, I know the feeling, Opposition Leader. I know the feeling. I've been the subject of that from you for 3 weeks. But anyway, let's not stop the truth getting in the way of a good story, Madam Speaker. And maybe those opposite are confused because of the chaos. I mean, they did have 3 chief ministers, 3 police ministers, 2 attorney generals. So they might be confused. But make no mistake, you can read it in the paper yourself. Your government knew about it and did absolutely nothing. And I think it's absolutely rich for you to come in here as if you care about police all of a sudden, or you care about process, or you care about transparency. In 8 years, you proved to Territorians that you didn't care about any of those things. Because you know what? You think Territorians have a short memory. They do not. And actions speak louder than words, which is why this year is our year of action, certainty and security. It's why we are making sure that we have the inquiry from Justice Blow doing the work that needs to be done to give certainty to our police, the community and the officers who have been subject to the discussion. And we will never apologise for putting our police first, for making sure we're making the right decisions on behalf of Territorians. And I think, quite frankly, you need to take a good hard look in the mirror about what you're doing to support police.
Member for Daly.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Education. Minister, can you confirm that schools will be expected to pay for your free swimming lessons election commitment from 2026 onwards, including lessons, travel and accommodation costs for remote students? Is this a case of you taking money out of classrooms to pay for an unbudgeted, uncosted election promise?
Minister for Education.
That is a fantastic question, and I love talking about election commitments, Madam Speaker, that we took to the previous election, and as we went to the election, swimming in schools for all students between the years 1 to 6 will be free. And we have said that before the election. We are now elected. That is now rolling out across the Territory in schools, and we've got many schools that have already done their swimming lessons. I've been to the Casuarina pool up here and witnessed the school swimming up here. Also in Katherine, we don't have a pool, as I've explained in here many times. So we are using the RAF pool, And also we are using one of the caravan parks to do the swimming lessons in Katherine. And I know that a lot of the schools in the member for Barclay's electorate have all got together and have come in and had a bit of an excursion and had their swimming lessons in Tennant Creek. So this is a great initiative, Madam Speaker. We know that the drowning rate in the Territory is extremely high, and whilst this we have a lifestyle where people spend a lot of time outdoors. We've got backyard pools, or go down to the waterfront, or go out to Litchfield, Kakadu, wherever you choose to go for your time away, and swimming is the number one thing in this weather. So yeah, I will not shy away from the fact that this was a free commitment that we are giving to schools. This is an ongoing commitment, Madam Speaker, so the additional funding for swimming will be allocated through the school resourcing model. We will not be cutting anything to make sure that swimming is on the agenda in schools, Madam Speaker. It is a very important initiative that we...
Take your seat, Minister. Member for Daly, don't repeat the whole question. I think I know what you're going to ask.
Okay. No,
Accommodation and travel, is that what...
Yeah, it's about the extra, are there extra costs
The Minister is
associated
answering
with that
the question.
policy, including accommodation,
Take your
travel for those remote students?
You made your point. Minister?
Thank
Answer the
you.
question, mate.
And I was answering the question, Madam Speaker, but clearly they don't like the answer, and they don't like the fact that we are delivering on our election commitments on this side of the chamber. We are a government that are doing what we said we were going to do. We are getting on with the job. We're doing the heavy lifting, which is something that we've listened to for 8 years, while the previous government, the opposition now, did absolutely nothing to help schools and children out in the kids that go to school. They did not give them the opportunity to have free swimming lessons. So that is something that...
Minister, I
Just
know what you're
again-
going to say. Relevance.
Relevance, exactly. So,
You
but
want
it
more
hasn't been
information
answered
on
because it's
travel
around
and
the travel accommodation.
Okay, sit down.
There could
Minister,
be extra cost to
it's
those
your
remote
call.
students.
You've got 34 seconds to answer it.
Thank you. And we've been through this many times before, Madam Speaker, so I'm very happy to put on the record our free swimming lessons. All schools will be working with the department to work out what is right for their school, whether they be on an island or whatever. There's lots of variations and different ways that swimming lessons can be done. For example, at Gallawinku, then you can get, as I've explained in the House before, you can get massive big blow-up pools from Clark Rubber or whatever. They can go out. It's about water awareness. It's about getting swimming awareness and safety to students right across the Territory.
Member for Karama.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is to the Deputy Chief Minister. Deputy Chief Minister, we know that Territorians expect the highest standards of integrity from their elected representatives. And I note that opposition members have spent question time this week lecturing this government on matters like integrity, transparency and appropriate conduct in public office. Yet we all know that whilst in office, Labor members, like the member for Gwadja, were engulfed in misconduct and malfeasance and presided over a deep integrity crisis. The member for Gwadja's share scandal, when he was Attorney General, the Territory's top lawmaker, obliterated public trust. Deputy Chief Minister, how does the CLP government's approach differ from the former Labor government's when the member for Gwadja was a senior minister, but luckily no longer in our Northern Territory?
Deputy Chief Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank the member for Karama for this important question, because I know he's a man of integrity. Madam Speaker, a minister who buys shares in a liquor wholesaler that supplies Alice Springs with liquor just 2 months before alcohol bans were lifted has an undeniable conflict of interest and lacks integrity. It demonstrates that the member for Gwadja was prepared to put his own financial interests ahead of the health and safety of Territorians, his own personal interests ahead. Madam Speaker, in just the first week after Labor allowed the Stronger Futures to lapse, there were 180 domestic violence call-outs. That's 25 an hour, no, 25 an hour, sorry, 25 a day, which is 1 per hour, Madam Speaker. 1 call-out per hour because this Labor government failed Territorians. There are 82 reports of neglect, Madam Speaker, and 7 reports of sexual exploitation of children. In the first week, Madam Speaker, our CLP government is doing things differently. We have been open and transparent, not like the former Attorney-General who brought shares in a liquor supplier just 2 months before the end of the Stronger Futures, while sitting in the Labor cabinet that made that decision. That was against the advice of peak Aboriginal organisations. It was even against the Federal Labor's Marion Scripshaw. She said it was a bad idea. Their own party, she described it as negligent to suddenly pull the pin without any protection or plan for vulnerable women and children. We all know the carnage that caused across Alice Springs, or why the member for Goyja made money out of misery. Madam Speaker, my colleagues behind me witnessed it, and so did you, Madam Speaker, witnessed the chaos firsthand in Alice Springs. It wasn't until the Prime Minister came to Alice Springs and told the then Chief Minister how to do her job and forced Labor to do an embarrassing backflip when they did finally reinstate those alcohol bans. But sadly, Madam Speaker, sadly for many, many victims of alcohol-related assault, crime and harm, it was too little, too late. Federal Senator Jacinta Price called for the member for Goyja to resign. And of course he didn't have the integrity to do that. She said it was sickening to hear that a Northern Territory minister who had deliberately allowed alcohol to flow where it was killing our people because it would deliver a profit to companies that he was invested in. He had shares in. And what did the Chief Minister, the then Chief Minister, Eva Lawler, do, Madam Speaker? Nothing. In fact, Madam Speaker, she moved to block ICAC investigations. Labor ran a protection ran it for the member for Goyja. These are all conflict of interest, and it seems to be a theme, Madam Speaker. It just
Your time is expired, Minister. Member for Arafura.
Thank you for the question, Madam Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Education. Minister, so similar to the other question, can you explain how funding was allocated to meet your free swimming lessons election commitment? For example, in my electorate, so comparing, why have Darwin schools within walking distance of pool been allocated 150 per student? The same amount has been allocated to students of Manmarooly School, who will need to fly and stay in Palmerston or Jabiru to attend their lessons.
Minister for Education.
Thank you, and I thank the member for the question, so I can go and say how we, again, Madam Speaker, are delivering on an election commitment. And I'm not sure what the opposition don't quite understand about the fact that we are delivering for all students, years 1 to 6, right across the territory, Madam Speaker. It doesn't matter whether you're in Gallawinku, whether you're in Palmerston, or whether you're in Maningrida, or wherever you are, you will be able to, or in the Barkly, sorry, member for Barkly, we cannot forget about the Barkly. All students between years 1 to 6 will be getting swimming lessons delivered to them. What they actually don't understand is all situations in their communities are unique, and they will be tailored for their communities. So it doesn't matter, as I said before, whether you're at Gallawinku or whether you're at Maningrida, if you do not have the capacity to come in, then the department it's actually the School of Sport is now working with those communities and is delivering on these programs, Madam Speaker. So again, I would just like to reiterate that these are essential swimming and water safety skills as part of the education and is part of the broader initiative to provide cost of living relief, reducing financial burden for families. And we know how the cost of living is at the moment, Madam Speaker. So this is another thing, as well as the back to school vouchers, that families do not have to fork out from their hip pocket. So as I said, you know, I'm not sure how many times I can explain to the opposition of how swimming lessons will be delivered out in remote areas, but they will work with the School of Sport and they will work out what is best for that community, how they will get out there, whether it be with Rural Life or YMCA, whoever is delivering the programs, Madam Speaker. And as I said, there are plenty of places out there that I know that It's been looked at, the massive big Clark rubber pools that you can get. It's about water safety awareness. So it is a whole lot easier, Madam Speaker, and it is more efficient to take the school, the pool out to the communities and deliver it out there, as opposed to bringing all these people into communities. And I note the opposition leader is continuing to, yell out across the floor, Madam Speaker, but I'm just not sure what they actually don't understand about the fact
Silence.
These are free swimming lessons, Madam Speaker. This was a $3 million commitment at the election to deliver free. Free. Did you understand that? That means $0 free. So I'm not sure how else I can explain that to you, but all schools will be getting free swimming lessons. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Member for Blaine.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, my question is to the Minister for Local Government. Minister, integrity in government is incredibly important, and I know how much you value it as a member of this chamber for the past nearly 5 years. This week, we have heard those opposite question our government on integrity. Absolutely. Minister, can you please explain to the House how our government is restoring trust and not falling into the same traps as the previous Labor government?
Minister for Housing, Local Government and Community Development.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the member for Blaine for this important question. I know that he shares the same values as I do. For over a week now, Madam Speaker, we've heard Labor question the integrity of the CLP government. They have relentlessly scrutinised us over the handling of the ICAC report into the former Police Commissioner and his termination, and questioned our integrity over the Territory Coordinator Bill. It's a bit rich coming from Labor, Madam Speaker, considering the allegations surrounding the former Chief Minister, Michael Gunner, and the $40,000 taxpayer-funded travel scandal in the lead-up to the 2020 election. Madam Speaker, the CLP grilled the former Chief Minister about the alleged misuse of taxpayer funds in Parliament back in December 2021. He didn't answer any direct questions, but he did not deny that the taxpayer money had been used for his own election travel, approved by his brother-in-law. Mr Gunner also refused to answer 4 written questions tabled through the parliamentary process about Labor's taxpayer-funded 2020 election campaign travel, in contravention of the rules meant to protect us against the misuse of public funds. Under caretaker conventions, elected officials are not permitted to charge taxpayers for travel for party political purposes during an election campaign. This scandal was originally exposed by the NT Independent back in November 2021, which revealed that the Chief Minister's brother-in-law, Ryan Neve, approved tens of thousands of taxpayer dollars for Mr Gunner to travel to remote communities in marginal seats during the 2020 election campaign that Labor was hoping to win on the same day remote polling was occurring in those communities. That's how they lowered their standards. This is a direct contravention of caretaker provisions established to prevent the misappropriation of public funds. Documents through the Freedom of Information laws also showed that Mr Gunner and Mr Neve claimed trips were ministerial travel during the caretaker period, despite no record of meetings taking place. One trip to Timber Creek was clearly a campaign photo op, which would also fall under party political purposes. I can remember him even coming to the Barclay during the election campaign in 2020. The facts are, Madam Speaker, Mr Neve worked in the Chief Minister's office, and at the time of the trips, he wasn't working in the department, although he was later promoted to an executive level position. Madam Speaker, the former Chief Minister may have escaped ICAC, but has not escaped the notice that sums up this blatant hypocrisy of Labor.
Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Education. On the 6th of December last year, Minister, you announced on social media that Clyde Fenton Primary School long day care would remain open in Katherine. I understand that parents have been notified that it will in fact close in just a few weeks at the end of term 1. Minister, in your own very electorate, why have you not done more to support the parents of Katherine and the carers of Katherine to help keep the doors of Clyde Fenton Daycare open?
Minister for Education.
Thank you, and that's a great question so that I can update the House on what is actually happening with Clyde Fenton. So the Clyde Fenton Early Daycare Centre was going to close down, and there was some confusion in the school with the long daycare and the school, and actually at the end of the day, Madam Speaker, it came down to a funding model. So there wasn't the children to stay in the long daycare. The department has been working with Clyde Fenton Long Daycare to work out for those children to go into another daycare centre, and that's actually still in the process. So yes, there is a time coming up, and I'm not actually aware of what that date was. But that long daycare centre will be finishing up. It is a pre-school centre, so all preschools do actually get a teacher in them. So, Madam Speaker, those children, whether they are in long daycare or at the preschool, they are getting the same care. So those families will be offered another care centre, and I think that's actually the Kentish, they're working with Kentish Childcare in Katherine, and that's going to be an option for that school. But it just was the case that it didn't work out for the school and for them to carry on with that long daycare centre. As a funding model for the school, we tried to work with the school to keep that there, but it just wasn't the case that it could carry on. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Yeah.
Member for Goyder.
Madam Speaker, my question is to the Minister for Logistics and Infrastructure. Minister, Territorians are struggling with the cost of living, particularly for things like the cost of housing and fuel. Of course, not everyone has access to a taxpayer-funded fuel card. Minister, can you please update the House on how the CLP government is in touch with Territorians regarding the cost of living?
Minister for Logistics and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the member for Goyder for the question. And I did recently see the Leader of the Opposition on State Line, and she was right to say that the previous Labor government had lost touch, and I can tell you, Madam Speaker, she was right and she's still right. Because the 4 remaining members of the Labor opposition are from that very government the Leader of the Opposition claims lost touch with Territorians. Madam Speaker, there is no new talent in the Labor Party parliamentary wing. There are no new members in Parliament for the Labor Party who weren't a part of that train wreck of a government. And Madam Speaker, we constantly sit here and get lectured by those opposite about integrity and that they are the new Labor Party, something that rose from the ashes, if you like. It sounds like the phoenix rising from the ashes, Madam Speaker, but Madam Speaker, I think it's more like the smouldering of that train wreck. But Madam Speaker, when half of the opposition Labor Party room uses taxpayer-funded fuel cards like Bunnings gift cards on Boxing Day, I just sit over here and I laugh. We can never forget when in 2022 the member for Daly charged taxpayers more than $2,600 on his fuel card for a scenic road trip from the Northern Territory to Noosa in Queensland along the New South Wales northern coast. And Madam Speaker, we also can't forget when the member for Gwadja charged taxpayers $800 for interstate travel to visit South Australia's wine country in December 2022, while Alice Springs was seeing a significant increase in crime.
Shame.
Madam Speaker, it also appears the member for Daly charged taxpayers for a healthy amount of beef jerky and iced coffee, with the numbers not adding up on his fuel purchases. Maybe he can ask the member for Gwadja to help him with the numbers and work on his accounting. We constantly sit here, Madam Speaker, in this chamber listening to the member for Gwadja's 40-minute yap sessions while he tries to lecture us on the integrity of politics. But he is the biggest hypocrite of them all. Madam Speaker, we heard the Leader of Opposition on State Line talk about internal politics. Madam Speaker, we all know the member for Gwadja wants the opposition leader's job. Madam Speaker, the member for Gwadja fancies himself. He loves the limelight, but I can tell you now, Madam Speaker, I don't think that people of the Territory love him very much. Unlike those opposite, the CLP government got straight to work to deliver cost of living relief and put money back in the pockets of families in the Northern Territory. Thousands of people have already taken up on the free one-year licences and our first home and fresh start grants. Over 400 Territorians into their dream home, Madam Speaker. Because, Madam Speaker, the CLP government is listening to Territorians, something those opposite don't have much practice in.
Member for Nightcliff.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Mining and Energy. Minister, yesterday in question time you told activists, which are Territorians that cared about climate, that they are not welcome here and should go back to where they came from. First, I want to assure all Territorians that despite this government's rhetoric, you are welcome here, no matter where you come from. Secondly, I want to assure you, Minister, that despite your thinly veiled threats, I am not going anywhere. I have been inundated with messages on this and there are too many to name, but Minister, the following hard-working Territorians who want climate action and don't want gas expansion here would like to know, do you want them to leave? Emma, GP, mother of 3, been here 11 years. Cam, electrician, father of 4, been here 1 year. Greg, interpreter, 23 years. Megan, pharmacist, 2 years. Beryl, 30 years. Jess, primary school admin, mother of 2, 14 years. Sam, scientist, father of 3. And what about the people born and bred here? Imogen, social worker. Sam and Joe, veterinarians. Millawonga, cultural leader. And every single traditional owner fighting for fracking on their country, Go and tell them, where do you want them to go?
Minister for Mining and Energy.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I really appreciate this question because, Madam Speaker, I can start by saying the gas industry pays for the health system. It pays for the education system. It pays for the police system. Most of those people you just mentioned, I understand, work in the public service or in the health system. Their job is because of the gas and mining industry. They're the industry that props up. They pay the wages. They pay for these microphones. They're the industry that keeps the Territory afloat. And yet, Madam Speaker, we know that the previous Labor government failed the gas industry and they failed the mining industry. They seem to think that the money to pay for the health system, to pay for the education system and to pay for the police to keep us safe just magically appears out of thin air. Just appears, Madam Speaker. Well, Madam Speaker, I can give the member for Nightcliff an education lesson. It does not appear on trees. It comes from the ground and it gets sold and we use that money to pay for...
Minister, take a seat. Member for Nightcliff, what's your point of order?
Relevance. I very specifically asked those people that I named, are you telling them to leave the Territory?
Member for Nightcliff, you've allowed him 1 minute. There's plenty of time for the Minister to answer the question.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. What I do appreciate is how much the mining industry brings into the Northern Territory, how it brings us action, it brings us certainty and it brings us jobs. It brings us jobs, Madam Speaker. And I understand your own partner made money out of the gas industry. They pay your mortgage. They pay your mortgage. They pay for you. They pay for you to be here. So you should thank them as well, because that's what the gas industry do. They provide jobs in the Northern Territory. They provide jobs for the people who you just called out.
Minister, take your seat. What's your point of order, Member for Nightcliff?
Relevance in so many ways. Mostly the question that I'm asking that you seem incapable of answering. Put on your big boy pants. Answer these Territorians. Are you telling them to leave?
Member for Nightcliff, what he's saying is relevant to the question you asked. Please continue,
Thank you,
Minister.
Madam Speaker. And I'll go back to what I say about saying how I support the gas industry and I thank them for being here. I thank them to be able to put the money into the Treasury's bank account to be able to pay for this chamber ring today, to pay for the vehicles you drive, to pay for the fuel, to pay for the mechanics, to pay for the hairdressers, to give them jobs, Madam Speaker. So I ask anyone out there who wants to support the gas industry, welcome to the Territory. Please come here, please stay, bring your families. Bring your families. And in fact, Madam Speaker, why don't you take advantage of our nation-leading first home buyer scheme? Our nation-leading. Come and buy a house. Come and build a house in the Territory, Madam Speaker. That will give more jobs to contractors, more jobs.
Member for Nightcliff, there is no point of order.
There is a point of
order.
order.
The answer may not be to your liking, but
are you telling those people to go?
Sit down, please. Member for Nightcliff. Minister, you've got
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I really appreciate that. And I just want to say again, Madam Speaker, I support the gas industry.
Point of order, Madam Speaker.
Yes, what's your point of order, Member for Goyder?
Disorderly language. I'd ask her to withdraw her comment.
Howard.
Look, I didn't hear it. Let the minister finish his answer and let's move on.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I do have my big boy pants on and I am ready to go because I support the gas industry. This government supports the gas industry. We support the mining industry. We support the agriculture industry. We support the defence industry and we also support the tourism industry, Madam Speaker, because they're the industries that's going to make the Territory a better place. What the Territory is worth fighting for, Madam Speaker, and that's probably the reason why I'm here, because I think it is, and this previous Labor government destroyed what I precious, what I really appreciate, the Territory lifestyle, and they destroyed it. We're here to fix it, and we support the gas industry, drill baby drill.
Member for Karama.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is to the Attorney-General. Attorney-General, as you know, this week there has been significant media and political commentary about conflicts of interest, integrity in government and decision-making process. Labor has tried to paint our government as lacking transparency. However, Labor's own record on integrity tells a different story. Here's another example. Natasha Files had to step down as Chief Minister for owning shares in South 32, the company that runs the Gemco mine on Groote Island, and in major gas company Woodside Energy Group. As the Chief Minister, she was making decisions about a company which she owned shares. Attorney-General, isn't it a bit rich that Labor question our integrity knowing they don't practice what they preach?
Attorney-General.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to the member for Karama, because this is a great question. This is an example of the ultimate hypocrisy. We have 4 Labor members sitting over there on their high horses questioning the CLP over integrity, and yet they sat there on their hands supporting their Chief Minister who had shares in companies that she was making decisions on. That is an absolute disgrace. The former Labor government's legacy is a government of chaos, corruption and cover-ups, and that's exactly what they did for the last 4 years. And Natasha Files was the queen of cover-ups, with the 4 of you over there sitting, looking at us, acting like we have no integrity, where it was you and your government who covered up every step of the way. Why did you not come clean on the ICAC report that I have tabled here today? Why didn't Natasha Files say anything? Because you wanted to cover everything up, and it is an absolute disgrace.
Minister, talk to me.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It is an absolute disgrace that the 4 Labor members over there sit there like they're all squeaky clean, but they are not. They all knew what was going on, and they didn't do anything about it because they're all a bunch of hypocrites, and in fact they have no credibility. They stand up and ask questions about integrity, and yet Territorians know they have no credibility. They just have to read the room and watch the commentary on the news when they are reading the paper. Unbelievable.
Same.
And you know what, Madam Speaker? Labor had only ever acted when they were found out by media. They only ever came forward when they had to under their Labor government. Absolute disgrace. The Leader of the Opposition, Madam Speaker, I want to ask her, through you, when the Leader of the Opposition's constituents on Groote Island complained about their health concerns of the mine, why did you say nothing about that? You literally backed in your Chief Minister, said nothing because you knew that she owned shares in the mine. Absolute disgrace. Absolute disgrace. Natasha Files dug herself a hole, and the 4 of you just sat there listening to her go on and try and unwind everything that had happened, but under your watch everything was unravelling because you were so busy focusing on yourself, so busy trying to cover up everything that was going on that you let the Territory go into rack and ruin. It was an absolute disgrace. Territorians knew about it and they had enough, which is why they are now sitting in the opposition, Madam Speaker. That's why Territorians voted emphatically for change, because they were sick of the cover-ups and they were not going to put up with it any longer.
Member for Mulca.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Question to the Minister for Corrections. Minister, is the Halls Youth Correction Facility already at capacity? Is the intentions to place more than one child in a cell? I am very concerned that this could be dangerous for children who share a cell with another child person, especially for they are not from same community, a clan or family. Is there an intention for young people to share cells? Thank you.
Minister for Corrections.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and it gives me an opportunity to talk about the absolute chaos and debacle about the Youth Justice Facility under the Labor government's watch. Madam Speaker, we know that the youth up here in the Territory need to have wraparound support, and they need to have special treatment to make sure they have the best start in life to be able to become people who can value add to our community. Madam Speaker, we know that the former Labor government were attempting to deliver that project, and it was 2 years delay. Now this is going to get you a good one, $70 million over budget. $70 million over budget, 2 years delay. So, Madam Speaker, what does that really mean? Madam Speaker, what that means is for 2 years, people in the youth justice services weren't getting those services. They didn't have the state of the art. They were in a facility which the former Labor government said that it wasn't fit for purpose. They put him into a former detention centre, jail at Berrima. So these youth weren't, for 2 years, Madam Speaker, weren't getting those wraparound services that they expect. And they need that, Madam Speaker, because some of these children come from communities and some homes, some not all, which are terrible, absolutely. And those communities are terrible, Madam Speaker, because the previous Labor government failed to look after them. They failed to spend money where it needs to be. They failed to protect those vulnerable people. And that what happened, Madam Speaker, the children fell into the justice system and went into a place which wasn't fit for purpose. So, Madam Speaker, to ask the questions about numbers, as of the 12th, just a few days ago, there were 32 youth in that facility. So it can fit up to 80. So there is a lot of room in that facility. So what that means is that those youth, those young offenders, have these wraparound services. They go to school. I've been there. I've seen those facilities. I've been to the one in Alice Springs. I've been to the one in Darwin. And, Madam Speaker, as part of our master plan, we're moving these youth, young offenders to Darwin to give them better support, to better wraparound services, to allow them to make better opportunities and be better citizens as they get older. Because, Madam Speaker, what this side of the chamber don't want, unlike that side, we don't want them to see them in the adult prison. We want to give them an opportunity to have education and to be able to make better decisions. We want them to be able to come back into the community and be good people and have an opportunity to work, have an opportunity to have a family, have an opportunity to get a job, have an opportunity to pay taxes so we can spend their money. Madam Speaker, it's important that we look after these young offenders, and the Labor government were 2 years late, $70 million over budget. Shame.
Member for Blaine.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is for the Treasurer. Treasurer, over the past 6 months in government, you have been open and honest with Territorians about the tough decisions we've had to make due to Labor's financial mismanagement. Treasurer, you have a huge role to play in bringing the budget into line. Can you provide to the House some examples of failures of fiscal management and integrity issues from the previous government?
Treasurer.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the member for Blaine for his question. And I know that he's a very, very committed local member and how much he values the importance of fiscal management in government. And Madam Speaker, the member for Blaine is absolutely right. Territorians deserve honesty, integrity and transparency when it comes to decisions about their hard-earned tax dollars. And Madam Speaker, day in and day out, this government is uncovering more and more of what those opposite were hiding from Territorians. From cost blowouts to hiding funding to avoiding their own debt cap, I've spent 6 months wading through it all. And as the member knows, we are committed to being transparent with Territorians, and we are continuing to be open and honest as we have to make those tough decisions regarding all Territorians. Madam Speaker, when it comes to the budget, sometimes it's not clear if Labor were being underhanded, egocentric, or if it was just pure incompetence. But I can tell you, Madam Speaker, when it comes to the amphibious aerospace industries, Labor treated Territorians to an unholy mix of both. Madam Speaker, those opposite should be well aware of the absolute failure of honesty and integrity that was bound into this deal. And I'm sure they thoroughly enjoyed batting away media inquiry after media inquiry. And I'm confident Labor will enjoy this walk down memory lane. We know they love talking about integrity. So let's start from the top, Madam Speaker, and this one starts across the country in New South Wales. Labor took one look at how poorly this project played out in other jurisdictions and said, perfect, we love to lose money, here's 10 million bucks, let's go. It's like watching your neighbour put a fork in a microwave and thinking, mine's probably built a bit differently. Well, in this case, Madam Speaker, it wasn't built at all. You have to wonder, did Labor ask if they'd actually ever built a plane? Madam Speaker, that covers the financial idiocy. Let's go into the opposition's favourite topic, integrity. The Independent reported that former member for Fanny Bay, Brent Potter, who at the time of the deal was a senior ministerial advisor, was crucial to securing this deal. Why is this relevant, Madam Speaker? I'd love to have the opposition answer that for me, but we all know they get stage fright when it comes to talking about responsibility. Amphibious Aerospace Industries is headed up by Brent Potter's former boss at another business. So, Madam Speaker, while mums and dads were battling the cost of living crisis back home in Darwin, Brent Potter was galvanizing across Asia for a private company on their hard-earned money when he became a minister in this government and when he was an advisor. And Madam Speaker, to wrap up, in case those opposite didn't understand the first time, the former Labor government handed $10 million over to a company that hadn't gotten off the ground, no pun intended, in other jurisdictions and was headed up by a former colleague of a senior minister advisor to minister, and then that minister was jet-setting around Asia on taxpayers' dollars. Madam Speaker, those opposite would know integrity from a bar of soap.
Treasurer. Member for Johnston.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question's a question for Minister Maley. Minister Maley, I've heard you say several times in the chamber this week, drill, baby, drill. I understand this is a quote from Trump. You said it in relation to the Territory Coordinator. Is this the leadership and economic model that you want for the Northern Territory?
Deputy
Madam
Chief
Speaker,
Minister.
thank you for the opportunity to speak about the gas industry and the mining industry. And Madam Speaker, I'm very proud to be the Minister in charge of this industry because this industry is going to bring the Territory out of the chaos and despair and absolute debt that the previous Labor government put us in. Madam Speaker, let me go back into history. Just in the last 8 years, we know the Labor government have been in power for about 19 out of the last 20-odd years. But I'll just go back to the last 8 years. When they came in office, we had about a $1.8 billion debt. About $1.8 billion. So in 8 years, can you imagine what it would be? Would you have a rough guess? I'll tell you, $11 billion. $11 billion. That's almost, or just over, $1 billion a year. They overspent. That's what that means, Madam Speaker. It means that to cut it back down to, you might get $6 and you go and spend $7. But that's very basic. Imagine overspending each year $1 billion. Madam Speaker, if you're in a private business, whether it be a small business, a partnership or a company, if you overspent $1 billion in a year, do you know where you would be, Madam Speaker? You'd be unemployed. You'd be out the door. In fact, you'd probably be in jail. You'd probably be in jail because you cannot afford that. And Madam Speaker, but yet, on a serious note, that's what the previous Labor government did to the Territory economy. They overspent taxpayers' money by about $1 billion a year for 8 years in a row. And the mining industry and the gas industry is going to help us get back on our feet to be able to, get this, Madam Speaker, pay for the health system, pay for the education system, and pay for our police. Pay for our police to keep us safe. Because that's another story, and unfortunately I don't have an hour to talk about the community safety and how it absolutely went to the dogs under the previous Labor government. People were getting robbed, there was assaults, the crime rates are going through the roof.
Take your seat, Minister.
Remember for Barclays crime rate.
Take your seat, please. What's your point of order, Member for Johnston?
110 relevance. Is Trump the model that you want to follow for the Northern Territory? Thank you.
Minister, you've got the call.
Madam Speaker, thank you. What I want to follow for the Northern Territory is I want to follow sound management of money. We want to manage our resources. We want to manage our money so we can afford to buy health, we can afford to buy police cars, and we can afford to buy a swimming pool. Because it's super important, Madam Speaker, that we make sure our community is safe, we rebuild our economy and we restore our lifestyle. And that is what the mining industry is going to do.
Minister, take your seat. I think the minister's answered your question in a roundabout way.
But Trump is the model that we want to follow in the Northern Territory. Thank you very much, Minister.
Minister?
Thank you, Madam. I've got 27 seconds to talk about how good this side, how good the Leah Whanakaharo government is going to look after Territorians. We're going to keep us safe. We're going to fix the housing issue. The Minister is going to talk about the red cars and how living in a public house is a privilege. And we need to make sure that we protect all Territorians, and the gas industry and the mining industry, the health system, all needs that. We want defence.
Member for Goyder.
Madam Speaker, my question is to the Minister for Corporate and Digital Development. Minister, all Territorians deserve to feel safe in their workplace, free from threats, intimidation and standover tactics. As members of the Legislative Assembly, we're expected to uphold the highest standards of workplace behaviour and respect for the Parliament and its leadership role in the Northern Territory. Minister, how is your experience in the Northern Territory Parliament and the experience of your colleagues aligned with these expectations? And can you please highlight any failures to meet these standards of which you are aware?
Minister for Corporate and Digital Development.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the member for Goyder for his question. Feeling safe in the workplace is a fundamental right of every single working man and woman, regardless of their role. I remember a very distinct failure to uphold these standards, Madam Speaker, and it was one that I myself was a victim of. Upon exiting Parliament House following parliamentary sittings in an evening back in 2020, I came across an individual who verbally abused and sought to intimidate me regarding comments that I'd made in this Parliament. Vicious and threatening comments, Madam Speaker. I was a new member of this Parliament at the time, and the experience shook me. It was confronting, and I'm sure many people in this chamber would agree that they would feel the same way under those situations. It should come as no surprise to anyone that the verbal abuser was a Labor advisor to the then Attorney-General Selina Yuba, who is now the opposition leader. An advisor who is also now the member for Daly and Deputy Opposition Leader. I wish I could agree with the Leader of the Opposition, who back in 2020 said it was out of character for the now member for Daly, but I would not be speaking honestly, Madam
Take your
Speaker.
seat, Minister. Leader of the Opposition, what's your point of order?
Standing Order 109, Part 5, a critical question around the character or conduct, and I ask you to rule on that, Madam Speaker, as the critical question, critical of the character or conduct of persons may be asked in writing.
I'll just...
You're on record. Apologising.
Somebody else making sure it's not parliamentary.
Exactly, it's a fact. You just don't like hearing it. You're being reminded.
Why wouldn't you sack him? Why'd you pre-select him? Where's your integrity? And reward your bad behaviour. Either way. None.
Look, as you were speaking, Minister, I was conscious that this was treading on a very sensitive area. The standing order that the Leader of the Opposition has referred to, questions may not be asked which reflect on or are critical of the character or conduct of those persons whose conduct may be challenged only on a substantive motion, and questions critical of the character or conduct of other persons must be asked in writing. Look, can I ask you to not proceed any further with your discussion around this point?
Madam Speaker.
Around the conduct of the member for Daly. It allegedly happened before he became a member. I think we just need to be just a little bit careful of how we proceed in this space.
Absolutely respect your ruling, Madam Speaker, and it's interesting that the opposition leader doesn't want to speak about integrity. But let me refer to the Leader of the Opposition's adjournment speech from the 13th of February, a speech in which she highlighted the disgusting arrogance and lack of honesty and poor behaviour on display by CLP members, Madam Speaker. Those were words that the opposition leader spoke in this chamber, along with accusations of pure nastiness. Then there's the Leader of the Opposition's reference during the same speech in this parliament, saying the standard you walk by is the standard you accept. So where along the way, Opposition Leader, would you say that your standards have changed? I would say that they're very much the same as they were back in 2020.
Take your seat, Minister. What's your point of order, Leader?
Member for Breitling to direct his comments through the chair. He's reflecting on the chair in his commentary as he fires up on his answer.
Take your seat. I don't think that's a point of order. Minister, continue.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I would say they're very much the same as they were back in 2020. Madam Speaker, when the now the opposition leader accepted and then rewarded poor behaviour and pure nastiness. The opposition leader also said she felt unsafe in this workplace.
Minister, take your seat. Point of order.
109 Part 2 Section D, imputations by the member for Breitling in his manner of talking through his answer.
Look, there's no point of order there. There's no imputation there. Please continue.
During a speech in this parliament, Madam Speaker, the opposition leader also said she felt unsafe in her workplace. Just imagine, Madam Speaker, having to come into work after being verbally abused and intimidated after dark as a very new member of parliament and not knowing if it's going to happen again. How is that for feeling unsafe in your own workplace? The opposition have been slamming us about integrity, Madam Speaker, yet I have not experienced integrity from the opposition since I first entered this parliament in 2020. Accusing us of being nasty and making us feel unsafe? There is more integrity in the Chief Minister's pinky finger than in both the opposition leader and her deputy, Madam Speaker.
Member for Guadja.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, my question is to the Minister for Education. Minister, Yiparunya School is an important educational facility in Alice Springs, particularly for children from town camps. Can you confirm the Department of Education recently reviewed Yiparunya School, including its use of government funding and finances? If so, what were the parameters of the review, and will you table a copy of the report on the findings?
Minister for Education.
Madam Speaker, thank you, Member for Guadja, for the question. And I'm not sure how much I can say about that, Madam Speaker, because it is actually under review. I'm not I haven't got the report from that the department has done, but I know that they are looking into it and doing that. So I can potentially give the member for Guadja an update on that at another time if he likes, but I don't have that information in front of me, Madam Speaker.
Yes, what's your point of order, Member for Guadja?
Relevance. I'm very much appreciative of your response, Minister, for highlighting there is a review. Are you able to advise the Assembly on what the parameters of that review are?
Yeah, as I said, Member for Guadja, that is an operational issue by the department, and I don't have that in front of me at the moment, but I'm happy to give you that information when I get it.
Point of order, Madam Speaker.
I don't think that the Minister's got anything more to say. Is that...
I'm just clearly
Have
asking
you finished your contribution, answer, Minister? Or were you sitting down for the point of order?
No,
Okay.
for the point of
What's
order.
your point of order,
Thank you.
Member for
Thank you,
Guadja?
Minister for Education. I'm simply confirming, is it in relation to school attendance or is it relation into financial and administrative
Okay, we've
arrangements?
got that question. I don't think the Minister
There
can
is
answer.
a lot of delving into of the whole school, Madam Speaker, as a whole. And I would like to remind the member for Guadja that it was actually, this did happen under the previous government, and it is on my watch that I have asked for this report and the report, and we are trying to work with the school to fix this issue, and it is ongoing. So, as I said, I don't have any further information.
Minister, take a seat. Any more than 3 points of order is usually a distraction, so this better be good.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The standing order is 110. Yiparunya School is an independent school. Will you table
No.
the report findings when they are completed?
That's the same question you've asked pretty much 3 times. There'll be no more points of order. Minister?
As I've said, Madam Speaker, I don't have the information in front of me. It is an operational issue, and when I get the information, I will share it with the member for Guadja.
You've answered the question. Member for Blaine?
Drysdale.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Madam
Drysdale.
Speaker.
Go on. What time is it?
Madam Speaker, my question is to the Minister for Health. Minister, the Auditor-General released a report earlier this week that looked into, amongst other things, the inappropriate use of public resources by the Leader of the Opposition. The same Leader of the Opposition who today we have heard did not table ICAC reports, supported bully boy tactics and then tried to silence them here today when we discussed them. That same Leader of the Opposition whose staff seem more focused on pinning up rainbow flags in the bathrooms rather than delivering for Territorians. Madam Speaker, can the Minister please provide an update on the House to this important matter?
Minister for Health.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I do thank the member for Drysdale for the question, and certainly he's interested to focus on the integrity issues of the opposition. This incident, member for Drysdale, through Madam Speaker, is just another example of Labor's moral and professional failings. Sadly, Madam Speaker, it appears to be in their DNA. The pattern of the past 8 years of Labor's dysfunctional reign has continued under the opposition leader. Shame. We continue to see the same failure to lead, lack of ethics in decision-making, a moral ambiguity, hypocrisy and a complete lack of self-reflection. Madam Speaker, on Thursday the 30th of January this year, a staffer from the opposition leader's office was captured on CCTV entering a lift near the 4th floor offices of the opposition leader and then exiting onto the 5th floor. Once on the 5th floor, this Labor staffer skulked his way into the 5th floor toilet to put up a poster of my image, superimposed over a rainbow flag in the men's toilet on the 5th floor. The issue happened nearly 2 months ago, and to date, the Leader of the Opposition has continued to run a protection racket for bad male behaviour in Labor's ranks. Sadly, this continues the Labor tradition of acceptance, condoning and sweeping of poor behaviour under the carpet. Was this staffer instructed to make the poster and take it to the men's toilets? And if so, by whom? We still don't know the answer to that question, Madam Speaker. We still don't know. Other than the wet lettuce weef response of the opposition leader at the time, what action was taken? Madam Speaker, you've heard over the past hour a long list of documented poor behaviour, rorts, absence of moral integrity. You've heard about today's Operation Apollo revelations, the member for Gwaja's share scandal, and of course Labor's 2020 election campaign rort of taxpayer dollars, which included the Chief Minister at the time flying into my electorate in the Barclay on taxpayer dollars. The former leader Natasha Fyle's share scandal, we've heard about that. We've heard about the amphibious planes scandal, the failure to address the deputy opposition leader's behaviour, and Madam Speaker, it was just in the last sittings that a federal Labor staffer's threatening behaviour towards one of the MLAs in this House. Madam Speaker, this is not the standard that Territorians should accept, and the CLP will continue to call it out. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today, and while I'm on my feet, any further written questions should be put on the written notice paper.
The Clerk.